So if we wake up in the middle of the night,
Hmm.
what is the best way to get back to sleep?
Yep. So this is the number one question that I get asked. It's interesting. So number one, I have a YouTube video on this very question. So if you don't get all of it now, rewind, listen to it again, and then if you still don't get all of it, I do have a video on this, so you can check it out. So this is going to take me about 2 minutes to get through this explanation. I'm rolling up my sleeves and I'm getting ready to go. So your core body temperature rises, rises, rises till it hits a peak every night around 10:30 at night. Then it begins to fall. When that core body temperature falls, that's a signal to your brain to release melatonin into the system. So remember, melatonin is kind of that key that starts the engine for sleep. It's not the only thing that you need, but you ain't sleeping if you ain't got no melatonin, right? So now your core body temperature continues to drop, 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 drop. At some point in time in the night, your temperature has got to go back up. Otherwise, you go hypothermic and you die, right? That period of time is usually between 1 and 3 o'clock in the morning, which, by the way, everybody who's listening is going to say, you know what? That's the time that I wake up. So, to be clear, every person on earth wakes up between 1 and 3 o'clock in the morning. Here's the thing: 99% of them fall back asleep, right? They don't even realize that they were up. They kind of startle and then roll over and they kind of go back to sleep. But there is a select group of people, my patients, who that's the territory. That's the problem. I'm having a hard time falling back to sleep, Michael. What do I do here? Right? So there's a couple of things you want to think about. So number one, don't go pee. Yes, you heard that correctly. Do not go use the restroom. Oh my God, Dr. Breus, what are you talking about? Why would I not go use the restroom? Because here's what really happens is most people, when they wake up in the middle of the night, they say, well, I'm up. I might as well see if I need to go to the bathroom. Bad idea. There's one metric that everybody needs to know is you want a heart rate of 60 or below in order to enter into a state of unconsciousness. Guess what happens to your heart rate when you go from a lying position to a seated position to a standing position and you walk across the room? Your heart rate gets above 60. So then when you go to the bathroom, which by the way, if you flip on the light, you just told your brain it was morning and now it's no longer producing melatonin. Now you have to come back and lower your heart rate. So number one, I want to be super clear. If you got to go, please go pee. But if you're thinking, hey, why not? It's a terrible idea because now you have two problems. You got a heart rate problem and a sleep problem. If you do have to go to the bathroom, I would argue put some strategically placed night lights along the way so that you don't have to turn on any lights and also so you're safe and don't knock into any walls. When you get back into bed, the second thing I don't want you to do is look at the clock. Okay? Please don't look at the clock. I know you're going to no matter what I say right now. Okay? But that is true. It would be great if you didn't. Because here's what happens is you instantly do the mental math and you say, oh crap, here we are again. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Number one, your anxiety goes through the roof, which means your heart rate goes through the roof. Remember the metric, 60 or below. So you getting upset by looking at the clock is really stupid because you're going in the wrong direction if you're trying to get back to sleep. What you're thinking in your head is, oh, I want to know what time it is. Who cares what time it is? If it's still dark, close your eyes. All right. Now, I'm not so stupid as to think that people aren't going to do this. So they do it and now they're pissed off. Okay, great. So you've gone to the bathroom even though I told you not to. Now you've looked at the clock even though I've told you not to, right? You're anxious and you're angry. All right, what am I going to do? So here's what you're going to do is you're going to start to use a breathing technique. Because what I have to do now is I have to get you away from what I call monkey mind, which is you start thinking about things, right? So, oh, what did I do today? What do I need to do tomorrow? What's on the grocery list? Oh, my business is failing. Oh, my marriage is on the rocks. And you just now you're never going to sleep because your heart rate is too high. Remember, the metric is 60 or below. Now, some of our audience members are going to say, well, wait a second, my heart rate never gets below 60 because I have hypertension. I get it. All I'm talking about is I'm talking about a significant drop in heart rate to a point where it would be the lowest of the night, right? So anyway, we've got to fix this. We've got to make it so that you don't have monkey mind and we have to lower your heart rate. So there's a breathing technique called 4-7-8 breathing. We talk about it in the book. I give a whole explanation of it, but it was actually developed by a guy by the name of Dr. Andrew Weil. So folks may remember Dr. Andrew Weil was one of the very first naturalistic doctors who was interested in holistic medicine, longevity, Harvard trained, has an institute in Arizona, super bright guy, right? So what he was doing is he was actually working with the Navy SEALs. And when you're a sniper and you're shooting downrange, if your heart is beating too fast, you can change the trajectory of the bullet. Okay, so you become less accurate. So his job was to teach them a breathing technique to lower their heart rate below 60 so they could fire in between heartbeats, right? Because they can do that pretty quickly. We don't really care about that part of the story, but what we do care about is that they drop them below 60. So it's exactly what it sounds like. You slowly breathe in for a count of 4, you hold for a count of 7, and then you breathe out for a count of 8. Now, I'm going to tell you something. When I first started doing this, I couldn't hold my breath that long, and I certainly couldn't expel my breath that long. So I had to do 4, 5, 6 breathing. Okay, so and then I graduated from 4, 5, 6 to 4, 7, 8. Let me explain what it's doing. Most people, turns out, are shallow breathers. This is where the breathe part in the book comes in because I learned a lot about it at that point in time when I was doing the research. So most people only breathe shallow, so they only use half of their lung. So our bodies have lungs the size that they are because the entire lung needs to be used to distribute oxygen all over the body. So when you only use half the lung, you need to use, your heart has to beat twice as fast, right, to distribute that less amount of volume of oxygen. This is a basic property of physics, okay? So you're saying, okay, Michael, I get it. So we need to do that. So 4 is when you breathe in, you're actually extending your lung almost completely. 7, you hold, and now you use up all the oxygen. And then 8, you completely dispel and get every bit of carbon dioxide out. Now, when the new breath comes in, it's all super fresh, clean air, right? And it's not like a tough breath, and you're not going really hard. It's more a slow, relaxed breath in, a relaxed hold, and then a relaxed release. You want to do 10 to 12 cycles of this, okay? In order, and it'll take about 20 seconds to get through each cycle. So we're talking about 3 minutes of breathing here, right? But what happens is it almost immediately dumps your heart rate below 60. So now we're in a much better place, right? Because we've got your breathing. And by the way, you can't think of anything while you're counting. So that's part of the trick of the 4, 7, 8 breathing. And so what I do is I keep my hands as small fists. And then when I go through one cycle, 4, 7, 8, I stick out a finger. Then a second cycle, I stick out a finger until I get to 10 fingers out. Then I know I've done 10 cycles, right? And if I'm still feeling a little bit anxious, then I do a new version of counting sheep where I count backwards from 300 by 3s, okay? It is mathematically so complicated, you cannot think of anything else, and it is so damn boring, and your heart rate is already low. It gives a lot of opportunity for the natural sleep process to come in, take over, and allow you to fall asleep, okay? Now, let's say you're in that spot, but you haven't fallen back asleep. You've tried all the stuff. You're kind of, well, Michael, I don't know. There's something out there, there's a practice called yoga nidra, right? It's been around for thousands of years. In science, we call it non-sleep deep rest. So what is it? It's lying quiescent or in a relaxed state in the dark, no sound, just relaxing. It turns out it's rejuvenative. I mean, it's not like sleep, but it's worth about 20, 25% of sleep. So like if you do that for an hour, it's probably worth about 20, 25 minutes of sleep, right? So take some solace in the fact that just lying there in this nice relaxed state where you've done your 4, 7, 8 breathing, you're actually doing something good for your body. So don't worry so much. And the final thing I tell people all the time is sometimes you just have to accept it. Like sometimes your body just doesn't need to sleep. Like it's okay if you woke up at 4:30 in the morning and you're just wide awake. Like, okay, get out of bed. Like the world is not going to come to an end, right? If this happens, right? Like this has happened to you many times in the past, right? People are like, oh my God, I got a meeting. You're fine. Like relax, okay? Like this is, because what happens is in the middle of the night, we're not good at emotionally regulating. And so in the middle of the night, everything seems awful. And so what I do is, as an example, I was traveling because of the book, and I was staying at a hotel. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, I heard this like like this kind of weird creaking kind of noise in the hotel, right? And it kind of startled me and woke me up. And then I was like, and so I said to myself, like, this is a perfect opportunity to get upset, right? Like, oh my gosh, this noise woke me up and somebody trying to break into my room and what's going on with the hotel? Like you can really spiral pretty quickly at 3 o'clock in the morning. So what did I say to myself? I said, oh, you know what? That's really good. This is an older building. And so it's just, kind of settling in. I think I'm going to settle back in and go to sleep. And that's what I did, right? It's just, so number one, it's not like the building was coming down. There's not like anybody's going to come into my room. Like it's like all of those things that you think are going to happen aren't really going to happen. So some level of acceptance of what your situation is also, again, lowers your stress, which lowers your heartbeat, which then allows the natural sleep process to take back over. It really, really is in the middle of the night, all about your heart rate.
If we don't get good sleep, is it okay to nap during the day to catch
Great
up?
question. Only if you don't have insomnia. I'm a big fan of the nap, but if you don't sleep well at night, you really should not nap during the day because you're taking away from the sleep drive that's in your system, and it makes it much more difficult for you to fall asleep that night. So if you already don't sleep well, napping is out. But I love napping on Saturdays when I'm watching golf because they talk like this. They talk really softly.